Hello and welcome on into the Gatemen Pregame Show here on the Gatemen Baseball Network. Alongside me, Henrique DaMour and JD Raucci, I'm Cameron Stuart, getting you ready for Game 1 of the Western Division Finals between your Wareham Gatemen and the visiting Falmouth Commodores. For the Gatemen, it was a 2-game sweep over the Cotuit Kettleers, and games that were, especially Game 2, looked kind of different in the box score than it did at least feel.
They really did. I mean, obviously, Wareham with one of the most impressive offensive outputs of the entire season, putting up a 10 spot on the Kettleers, which was the hottest team in the West Division going into the playoffs. A team that the Gatemen struggled against in Game 1, a narrowly pulled out 3-2 victory that was 1 out away from going absolutely disastrously. Even the last call of the game mired in a little bit of controversy. It's a little bit of a meltdown. We saw Joey Barron in the last inning of Game 1. You know, he's a guy that pitched in the last inning of the last regular season contest between the Gatemen and the Kettleers, and was within one strike of getting the Kettleers, of defeating the Kettleers 4-3, but then things melted down a little bit. I still believe Barron is one of the better closers, or bullpen guys on this team. He's got really nasty strikeout stuff, but he struggled a little bit to put games away against the Kettleers. No harm, no fouls. The Gatemen did it and winning that game 3-2. But even the game that the Gatemen won 15-6, if you take out that last inning, that was a very, very closely contested game. We saw a guy in Zane Collins who hadn't given up in his second year on the Cape, I should say. He hadn't given up a run to the Wareham Gatemen ever in his 20-plus innings of work in the two combined years, and he gets absolutely shelled. 3 earned runs in a third of an inning, and so you kind of knew that this game could go the Gatemen's way, but slowly but surely, the Kettleers got back into it. Derek West had a great start. Jared Horn ran into a little bit of trouble and was bailed out by a solid outing from Ryan Stoudemire, which I was really impressed with because we've seen him sometimes give up a couple crucial hits. Obviously, in the last game that the Kettleers and the Gatemen played at Spillane Field, it was Stoudemire who gave up the 2-run shot to Garrett Wolfert that led the Kettleers to start, to extend their hot streak and get a rare win at Spillane Field. But aside from the 10 spot that the Gatemen put up in the game, it was a really, really closely contested game. I think the thing that kind of pushed them over the edge, and that one gave them the confidence to say, okay, you know what, we are better than this team, was Austin Shenton's solo shot off a guy that they had not been able to touch all year, Steven Schock, arguably the best reliever in the Cape League. I would say the best reliever in the West Division. Between his delivery, his stuff, his slider, we've talked about it ad nauseum, is absolutely nasty, but he's got a really wonky delivery, and with his big body and big frame, he puts a lot behind every pitch that he throws. Gatemen have had no success against him until that solo shot from Shenton, who has been hitting the cover off the ball, batting above 700 in the playoffs so far. One of 4 Gatemen that have been hitting at 500 or above. Yes, it's just a 2-game sample size, but that 10th inning, I think, or that 10-run 9th inning, I should say, was crucial, I think, because it gives, if nothing else, the Gatemen a lot of momentum and a lot of confidence hitting-wise, which they are definitely going to need today against the Commodores.
You said it, 1 nail-biter, 1 blowout in the series against Cotuit, but the way we've seen the Gatemen play against Falmouth all year, JD, it looks like we're going to expect a lot more like Game 1 against Cotuit.
Yeah, a lot of nail-biters could be on the horizon here with the Falmouth Commodores coming to town and playing this 3-game series with the Gatemen. You look at the season series, split it evenly, 3 games apiece. But the Gatemen 1-2 at Spillane, 2-1 at Gov Fuller Field, so it's been an interesting home field advantage. So really, if you look at least the season series, the Gatemen having home field advantage might not actually be an advantage in this series, but we'll have to see how that works out. Crowds are a whole heck of a lot different in the playoffs. Spillane has gotten packed a couple of times. The one time that Cotuit was here for Game 1 of the playoffs, we're expecting another good crowd tonight. We know Gov Fuller Field was absolutely jam-packed last night for their game against Hyannis and what became the series-clinching win for the Commodores, but really it is going to be the pitching of these two teams that is going to set the tempo for this game, especially with the guys that we have on the mound today. We're going to get to them in a little bit, but the pitching staffs of these two teams have been 2 of the best staffs, if not the 2 best staffs in the league this entire season. At one point this year, the Gatemen and the Commodores were number 1, the Gatemen were number 2 in the league in team ERA. These are 2 staffs that are really, really great, and we've seen a lot of low-scoring games. You think back to the loss for the Gatemen a couple of weeks ago at Gov Fuller Field, 3-0 to the Commodores. They get 3 hit by the likes of Ty Dyson, who pitched yesterday for Falmouth in the Game 2 clincher, and guys like Matt Canarino, who's gone, TJ Sycamore, who's gone, Ian Koch, who's gone, but still, this team for the Falmouth Commodores has given up 3 runs in the first 2 games of this playoff run for them. So that is going to set the tempo huge for this team moving forward. And then you look at the bats. The bats haven't been too bad either. Yeah, they're not really there in the playoffs, only hitting just above 200 in the 2 games they played against Hyannis. But again, Hyannis has a pretty good pitching staff, and they had to reload and still got a bunch of good pitchers coming off for the Hyannis Harbor Hawks, even though they lost both games. 5 combined runs for the Commodores through the first 2 games of this postseason. It's going to be interesting to see what they bring to the field, especially because of the fact first 2 games of the season and in the lineup today. Their 2 best hitters, Davis Sims, Kyle Stowers, not in the lineup. Kyle Stowers, a 3-time Cape League Player of the Week this season. Davis Sims has a ton of home runs. It's going to be interesting to see what they have in terms of offense. I think it's going to be crucial for the Gatemen to try to get out in front, especially with the quality of pitcher they have coming to the mound. What Falmouth has coming to the mound today, but it's going to be a pitching duel these 3 games, or at least the first 2 games. We'll see if we have to play a third.
Gatemen have struggled against Falmouth pitching this year, and one guy who knows all about that is the head coach, Don Sneddon. He got to talk to our Mariotas before the game to talk about the Gatemen's adjustments going into this series.
Thanks, guys. So, Coach, the team swept a very hot Katuitt team. First game, exceptional pitching. Second game, great hitting. How does that show the versatility of the guys?
Well, it was great hitting in the last inning. It wasn't great hitting up to that point. So, it got contagious and got hot with that. And, yeah, it was hot. It was one of the hottest days of the year. I mean, we lost our catcher Millis with, heat exhaustion and going on with that. So to win in that environment on their field like that, that's obviously a huge win for us.
We split the season series with Falmouth. They actually had 2 wins here, and we had 2 wins there. What do we need to do to defend home turf?
Well, again, they're throwing a lefty against us, which we haven't done quite as well against left-handed pitchers. But, they're a good team. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, it's going to come down to who makes an error or who gets a hanging pitch and gets a clutch base hit with it. So, as I told my players, this thing is all about now is taking the opportunities when they're presented to you and utilize them because they're good teams. You can't rely on them to walk us or them to make errors. We're going to have to manufacture our own runs.
You talk about their pitcher a little bit, Adam Lasky. He's been exceptional this season in the Cape. What is our approach going to be to him?
Well, like anything else, if you get a good pitch, you got to hit it. If you miss it, he can bury you. So he's sort of like I told these guys, a number 1 D1 type of guy that you got to really, really take advantage of the situations when you get them. You can't just go out and try to hit balls all the time. We got to manufacture a run, whether it's by a walk, a hit pitch, move up on a ball in the dirt, ground ball contact gives you a run. Again, he's going to keep it tight.
Lastly, what's the plan for starter Zach Hart and the bullpen?
Everybody. We don't have any plan. After Hart, I have no plan. It's just told all the pitchers just to be ready, and we'll try to do some matchups, right versus left or whoever field can get this guy out, depending upon where they're in the lineup. So right now, there really is no plan. It's just we'll figure it out as we go along.
Coach, thanks so much. After the break, we'll have more from the Gatemen Pregame Show.
The law firm of Lang, Exafaris, and Bullard, providing families and businesses in the greater New Bedford community with legal services for 40 years. We look forward to serving you. For an appointment, call 508-992-1270. We invite you to learn more about the law firm of Lang, Exafaris, and Bullard by visiting our website, lxblaw.com.
Thank you to Mary and Don for the interview before the break. Now to look at the pitching matchup, which has been so crucial between these 2 teams in the season series. And going with their technically number 3 guy, I guess if you're Falmouth, not a bad number 3 guy to have, and Adam Lasky. Tell us how good the Duke Blue Devil has been this year.
Well, he's been good to the tune of a sub-2 ERA, almost a 1 ERA. 1.18 on the season. He's a left-hander, a guy, an arm slot, and a kind of guy that the Gatemen have struggled a lot with this season in terms of facing southpaws. A lot of this lineup has really struggled. It's going to be important for Austin Shenton and Jeremy Idens especially to be good because they are the 2 best bats in terms of hitting left-handers in this lineup. All the switch hitters for the Gatemen are usually better from the right or better from the left side than the right. So when they face lefties, they struggle a little bit. But you really can't say enough about Adam Lasky. Left-hander, tall guy, 6'3", not going to overpower you with the fastball, but he has shut down every single team he has faced this season. 5-0 record. I don't even believe in wins as a statistic all that much, but 5-0, not losing a decision all year as a starter, that's pretty darn impressive. Adam Lasky is going to be a handful for the Gatemen tonight. They have to jump on him early because this Commodores pitching staff is so good. Runs are going to come at a premium, but the Gatemen, really something interesting that we've seen from the Gatemen all season long is they hit teams' aces really well. They play really well against aces. You think back to Justin Lasko in the final game of the regular season with the Bourne Braves. Came into the game as the ace, one of the best pitchers in the league, one of the best ERAs in the league. Gatemen toss him around for a couple of runs. That's what you need to see early today against Lasky because he is going to dominate in one facet or another.
And Lasky with an ERA that rivals Bob Gibson's back in 1968. Now looking at the Gatemen side, it's been a guy who's been a jack of all trades for the team this year in Zach Hart.
Yeah, he really has been more recently and more presently, obviously, evolving into a starting role. He made his first start of the year against Hyannis in a 10-6 win in which he gave up 0 of those 6 runs. 5 scoreless, 2 hits. And the secret to success for Hart has been his low walk numbers. 23 innings of work, again, in starting and relief, 4 walks compared to 16 strikeouts. He's not an overpowering guy, but he does have a fastball that could top out at 94, 95. He could chuck it with the best of them, and he was a starter this past year, his junior year at Franklin Pierce, but has worked mainly out of the bullpen for the Gatemen this year. But more recently, and today, obviously, he is getting the call to start. He's had a little bit of an up and down year, but at the end of the day, his opponent batting average is .207. His ERA is $1.54. All his stats have just gotten better and better and better as he has progressed throughout this summer. The one blip on the radar was against Falmouth, in which he gave up 2 earned runs in that infamous meltdown that felt like one of the worst losses of the season here at Spillane Field, one of the 2 wins that the Commodores notched at Spillane all year. But since then, he has been nothing short of immaculate. He has been really, really darn good. I'm expecting really good stuff from him if he can continue to replicate the stuff that he's learned at Franklin Pierce from his starting role and his success against a Hyannis team that was playing okay baseball, or at least they should have been, right? They were fighting for a 1 seed or a 2 seed. They ended up with a 2. Obviously, they got smoked by Falmouth a couple, in these last 2 games. But that's not a bad Hyannis team that he really shut down.
And from being a reliever, as we like to say here in the Gatemen broadcast team, Z Hart with the start today. He caught up with our Mariotas before the game to see how he's preparing for this game against Falmouth.
Thanks, guys. We're here at the Western Division Finals. First game, Zach, you're getting the start. How are you feeling about it?
Pretty good, man. I woke up feeling good this morning, so hopefully I can just go out there and do my thing. I've been pitching well lately, so hopefully I can just carry that into this game.
You talk about pitching well lately. Your last outing, your first start for the Gatemen, you went 5 scoreless. What was the key to your success?
Just hitting spots. These guys, they usually get themselves out if you hit spots. So that's what I've been doing. What I've been focusing on, making sure my off speed is pretty good, and that kind of thing. Mostly just spotting on my fastball.
Falmouth has only had 5 runs over their last 2 games. What are you going to try to do to keep them from scoring?
Probably work the corners of the plate. I'm a big guy of just pounding inside, working inside outside. So that's probably going to be the game plan. I talked to Lawler about it already. So inside 2 seams are a big thing, and working off speed, working inside, outside, that kind of thing. So yeah, pretty much just that.
And at Franklin Pierce, you were a starter. Here, you came out of the bullpen mostly until recently. How has that adjustment been going back to starting?
It feels good, starting you get a lot of time in between starts to really rest, and that's what I've had the benefit of so far. So going into this game really rested, my arm feels good, so hopefully I can go out there and just do well.
How many innings are you hoping to go?
I would probably say 5 or 6 at least. I mean, Lawler's got us all on a pitch count, so it depends on how many pitches I throw every inning, but I would say a solid 5 innings would be a decent start for me.
Lastly, what are the expectations from the bullpen? Who do you think will be coming out after you?
I have no idea, actually. I haven't talked to Lawler about that yet, but I mean, I have trust in any of these guys. We have a solid bullpen. We've had one of the best bullpens and staffs in the league so far this year. So I have faith in anyone coming out of the pen that they're going to shut it down after I come out of the game. So that's pretty much it.
Zach, thanks so much and good luck tonight. After the break, we'll have more from the Gatemen pregame show.
Mezzaluna is a family-run Italian restaurant celebrating 80 years in business. Located on Main Street in Buzzards Bay, Mezzaluna specializes in Italian cuisine, a lunch menu that's the best deal in town, and serves Cape Cod's famous prime rib every Wednesday and Saturday. Come enjoy the feast at Mezzaluna, the Italian family restaurant.
Welcome back into the Gatemen pregame show, and for a better look at tonight's opponent, the Falmouth Commodores, our Ian Becerra got to sit down with Falmouth beat writer Greg Levinsky in today's version of Get on the Beat.
And welcome in, everybody, for today's edition of Get on the Beat. I'm the Gatemen beat writer, Ian Becerra, and I'm joined with a special guest today, Greg Levinsky, the Falmouth beat writer. Greg, how you doing?
I'm good. It's a little weird to have this Wareham Gatemen microphone in front of me, but it's fun to be here.
You'll survive. You'll do just fine. And now, so Greg, let's get right to it. Falmouth the past 2 days, 2 big wins, moving on in the playoffs against Hyannis. How'd those 2 games go for the Commodores?
Low-scoring affairs, but it was timely hitting when needed. We had a Logan Davidson home run early in the first game. We had a walk-off win last night, courtesy of Cameron Cannon, who's been so clutch for us all season. And like I said, low-scoring affairs, just 5 runs over the first 2 wins, but just enough to get us here, where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. And so, Greg, how would you say the vibe is of the team right now? Coming in off those 2 wins, 2 close games, the walk-off yesterday, team must be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, they're feeling great. They really want to be here. I was just talking to our catcher, Maverick Hanley, and he's like, we really want this. We're enjoying this. We want to win it. For Coach Jeff Trundy, that's our hashtag we have, and they're just really enjoying their time here, and they don't want the summer to end.
Mm-hmm. And now one thing, Greg, that's been, the highlight of Falmouth all summer long has been that dominant pitching staff that you guys have had. Even though you guys have lost 3 All-Stars this summer, it hasn't seemed to phase you guys. It's been, the next guy up, and they've done just fine this summer. And so today we're going to see a real good one today in Adam Lasky.
Yeah, Adam Lasky, a guy who came from Duke, he didn't have the best numbers at Duke. He was hurt a little bit, and that played a part, but here he's been exceptional. 5-0 with a sub-2 ERA, sub-1.5 ERA. He's really been our ace, I guess you could say, especially now with some of the other guys gone. And it's wherever you want him, right? You want your best pitcher starting the first game of a championship series, and that's exactly where we're at.
Mm-hmm. And Greg, just lastly for me, this series has been very close between these two teams this season. 3 wins apiece. 2 wins on the road for Falmouth, 2 on the road for Wareham. What's Falmouth going to have to do to come in here, steal game 1, and steal the series?
I think it's timely hitting, right? I mean, the pitching is going to be good. I think we're pretty sure of that. We've seen that in all the games. They've been close, but timely hitting is going to be crucial. And in this lineup, there's a lot of different guys that can affect the game, and hopefully we'll see some guys affect it, in a positive way for the Commodores.
Mm-hmm. And that's the Falmouth perspective. And here, back to the Gatemen pregame show, we'll get you more of the Wareham perspective.
Thank you to Ian and Greg. We're about to wrap things up here on the Gatemen pregame show, but first, we've got to ask these guys what they think the Gatemen need to do to get a Game 1 victory. Henrique, let's start with you.
So I think you need a solid outing out of Zach Hart. He was awesome against Hyannis, like we said, one of the better teams in the West. But you need 4 or 5 innings out of Hart, I think. He's shown that he can do it, but he needs, when wins are at a premium here, right, in the Cape League playoffs, 1 loss, everything else becomes an elimination game, right? There's no room for error, especially here at home. Even though against the Commodores, they have been better on the road at Arnie Allen Diamond at Gov Fuller Field. At Spillane, the Gatemen are 16-7. They have dominated here at home. And again, one of the losses to the Commodores was a bit of a meltdown, bit of an anomaly. But I think you get 4 or 5 innings out of Hart. You maximize the efficiency of your bullpen arms. We've seen someone like Nathan Florence maybe go a couple of innings. We've seen him in a starting role and a relieving role. He's gotten better as the season's gone on as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see him in there, but then maybe throw out someone else in the 9th, maybe a Brandon White, even though he did get the last his most recent outing in the last game of the season. He might be on a little bit of a short rest, but aside from a blip there, we've seen him in long relief. I was really impressed with what he did against Brewster when they started getting hot, right? So I think you need this outing for the Wareham pitching staff to be 2 or 3 pitchers max. I don't think you can get into a Katuitt mode where you start chucking everybody, because even if you do salvage the game, what are you going to do tomorrow at Gov Fuller Field, right? Falmouth came out in droves fan-wise. That is going to be a very tough game to win on the road tomorrow. You do not want to go into that with your backs against the wall. So I think the best way to do that is to maximize your arms here. Hart 4 innings, someone else, maybe a Nathan Florence, I'm just speculating here, 2 or 3 innings, someone else for the 9th.
So Henrique, sticking with the theme of pitching. JD, how about you?
I'm going to go the opposite direction. My key to the game, score. Yeah, it might sound a little weird, but the Gatemen have not done it well against the Commodores this season. Only a couple of runs in each of their games versus Falmouth this year. The biggest offensive production in terms of run output for the Gatemen against the Commodores this season was in their first meeting. 7 runs and a 7-4 win in what was a comeback win against the Commodores. You've got to get out in front of this team early and often. You have got to pound Adam Lasky as much as you can and get to that Falmouth bullpen, because even the Falmouth bullpen is very, very good. They only used 6 arms in their first two playoff games of the season. They went Mitchell Stone for 6 shutout innings against Hyannis in Game 1. Then each of their relievers an inning each for 3 different guys. Then yesterday they only had to go with 2 guys to get the win against Hyannis in Game 2. So they are going to have almost a full staff of arms in the bullpen to go ahead and try to beat the Gatemen here and take that crucial 1-0 lead as Henrique was talking about. So I think you got to score early. You've got to score often, because like we said, Falmouth's pitching staff is good, but also their offense hasn't been great against the Gatemen this season. As good as Falmouth's pitching staff has been against Wareham, Wareham's has also been great against Falmouth. So the fact that they can keep the offense down, if you can get out and score early, I think that's the key to the game. You have got to go out, put the offense on the table, and show what you've got right away, and try to pound the Falmouth Commodores into submission, because I don't have a ton of faith in the Falmouth offense to be able to come back from a big deficit, considering they don't have their 2 best hitters in the lineup in Stowers and Sims.
JD, keeping it rather simple there. Last time I checked, whoever scores more usually wins the game.
That's how baseball works.
There you go. That's going to do it for us here on the Gatemen pregame show. Be sure to stick around and listen to these guys on the Gatemen Baseball Network as they bring you Game 1 of the Western Division Finals between the Wareham Gatemen and the Falmouth Commodores. For Henrique DaMour and JD Raucci, I'm Cam Stewart. Stick around.